Thank you, Yolanda. And so, we are here on assignment. Our reason for being, our soul's reason for being, is that we are assigned to a particular task. And that task is not about learning anything. It's actually about remembering something. Our soul's assignment is equated to remembrance, and that is that you and I are called to see with our mind, which is very different than seeing with your physical eyes. We have these physical mechanisms called eyes that are attached to retinas, that are attached to things, that are attached to the brain, which allow us to be able to create this imagery whereby we can perceive the world. But that's not our soul's assignment. Our soul's assignment is to move beyond that particular physical vision and to see the world through your mind. So seeing through the physical eye is what we would call surface vision. And many of us operate on a day-to-day basis through that activity of surface vision. But it's a glorious thing, and we are in right alignment with our soul when we allow ourselves to see the world through the mind, or that which we term consciousness or self-awareness. And you see, what has happened is that there has been a reversal in our vision and in the way in which we relate to that world. The reversal has been that somehow the physical sight has become dominant. We have believed in that surface vision as being the end-all, be-all, rather than having the deeper vision, which is the ability to see all activity, to see the world through that lens of awareness. And so you and I, as our soul's assignment, and as we obey that or find our way to be in alignment with that, is to go back to the origin of that cycle, to re-reverse what we have reversed in the density of our human experience, and to go back to the soul's trained way to view the world. So we do this by contemplating the deeper vision and not accepting what we see through the eyes of surface vision. It is the only true reason why you and I are here. As I've been rereading and rereading the autobiography of a yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda, I wake up very late at night and I go back and I touch upon this. And in one particular chapter, he explains in the Hindu philosophy that what I just described is called Maya, M-A-Y-A. And Maya is, in the Hindu philosophy, the veil that masks reality. And each of us wear a veil that masks reality. The reality that I'm referring to that is being masked is capital R reality. That is the reality that is associated with the deeper vision of mind. And so we wear this veil. And through this veil, then we begin to see things in a skewed way that is not in direct alignment with why our soul has come to be here. Yogananda said that to surmount Maya is the one task assigned to the human race by every prophet that has ever existed. To surmount that or to transcend it. He said to rise above the duality of creation and to perceive the unity of the Creator was conceived as humankind's highest calling. Have you ever wanted to know what your highest calling was? It is to transcend the illusional perception of what we see with the human eye. It's your highest calling. The highest calling has nothing to do with profession. And it has everything to do with the task at hand of entering into our days, our physical days, with the soul's perception of the world. One of the ways in which we've always referred to this is even in the apparent absence of. It's a wonderful mantra, even in the apparent absence of. Even in the apparent absence of love, there is love. And the love that is behind the absence is the love that is seen from the deeper vision, is the love that is known through mind, through consciousness, through awareness. That is the greatest task for you and I to perceive. Even in the apparent absence of order, there is order. Even in the apparent absence of peace, there is peace. And the reason why we must uphold and begin to continue to search to make that an individuated reality is because that is in direct alignment with what we understand to be the allness of the Creator. You see, when you classify that which we call God, life itself, love itself, the absolute nature of creation, the energy behind all of life, there cannot be a pocket then where that is absent. And so when we look at our world of effect, which you and I are thrust into 24/7, the highest calling then, as we've been thrust into that, is to take off the veil of Maya and begin to perceive that which is the world that God knows, that God sees, that intelligence knows, that intelligence sees. That is our highest calling. And so Maya then is a very tricky thing because the way it has been constructed is very holographic. Because if we're only operating through the vision of our physical eyes, then we will claim that the things that we see are reality, and guess what? You are right. But as we've often shown the distinction, there is a distinction between small r reality, which is the physical perception, and large R reality, which is the mental perception, or that which is the soul's assignment to see. And so I would never say to someone who comes to me and tells me their story and tells me their woe and unleashes their sorrow, I would never say, that's not true, it's illusion. Now get out of my office. Because it's true from the lens of which perception? The physical sight. And so compassionately, I would know that each and every one of us, because we're there often, I would know that what that is being seen as and through is that lens of the human eye. But what's the highest task that you and I have been called to do? Is to see it all through what? Through that which is the mind, to see through mind. So as I establish in mind the awareness of the allness of that divine order, of that plenitude, of that creativity, of that absolute love, as I establish it and see it in the realm of my mind, it cannot help but be reflected then in my world. That's why you take two people, you put them in the same event, you take their scope of what just happened, they will give you two different varying things because they're both operating and seeing through two different lenses. The goal then, our soul's assignment, is to remember to see through the mind. But again, Maya is a very tricky thing. It is duality in and of itself because true appearance is what Maya gives us, but it is an untrue existence. I have to say that a couple of times before you're going to latch on to this. Maya then, this illusion, this veil of illusion, is a true appearance, small r reality, but it is an untrue existence. So what illustration can I give you? You stand in front of a mirror. What do you see in the reflection? Your own self. It is a true appearance, but that which is the reflection is an untrue existence because you're right here. But the reflection, the hologram of you, is an untrue experience. That's why our founder, Ernest Holmes, said, life then is a mirror, and it will reflect back to the thinker what he thinks into it. What is your soul's assignment? To remember to see through your mind. Because I can stand in front of the mirror and I can say, look, there it is. It's right there. And I would be true. I would be accurate in small r reality. But you and I are called to, as students of truth, of those who walk this spiritual elevated path, that seek to be the illumination of that which is God itself, because you and I are the vessels of that. Then our task is, regardless of the environment, regardless of the circumstance, I don't care how heightened and egregious it is, our soul's assignment is to remember and to know, to see with mind first. No exceptions. And so every time we don't do that, every time we go back to looking at the reflection and saying, oh, that's the reality, we then invite within our experience pain and suffering. But every time we go back to the authentication of seeing through mind first, then we get back into right alignment. And what takes us off course? So many things. So many things. There is a story about these 3 hermits. If you look at the word hermit in and of itself, which has its origin in the word hermitage. A hermitage then is a place where you and I might go to be restored to our inner purity. So a hermit, technically, in its etymology, is a person who is isolated in purity. And so here are these 3 holy hermits, the double H's, the three holy hermits. And they are on an island, and people come to them for spiritual advice. And the only prayer that these hermits know is, we are 3, thou art thee, use us. We are 3, thou art thee, use us. And amazing things would happen with every single person who would come to these hermits. People were healed. There was magnificent manifestation. And word got out to a bishop who lived somewhere near the island that these 3 hermits were doing these amazing, amazing things. And the bishop wanted to know more. Tell me their method. Tell me their verbiage. Tell me their prayers. And so people would say, we are 3, thou art thee, use us. And the bishop was appalled at how crude that prayer was. And so he took it upon himself to travel to the island in order to educate the hermits on the proper way of prayer. And he taught them, and they were very receptive, and they listened, and they would recite, and they would try to remember. And he went through all of the canonical processes and the liturgy of what it is that they were supposed to do technically. And so they listened, and they listened. And finally, he felt like he had taught them everything that he had, and he got back on his boat, and he began to drift away from the island. He turned to look back at the island, and he saw this beautiful gold emanating light. And he couldn't perceive what it was, but it was just booming and bright. And the farther he got away from the island, the light was traveling. Until suddenly what he saw was the light was the 3 hermits. And they were running on top of the water to get to him to say, Bishop, Bishop, we've forgotten the prayers already. Remind us again what we're supposed to know. And the bishop looked with his jaw dropped at the majesty that they have defied gravity. And he said, forget everything I told you. That's what you and I are called to do, is to forget everything that you have been told that is not congruent with the vision and the possibility, the infinite possibility of our mind. So when someone says it can't be done to you, They are then referencing an opinion through the lens of the physical eye. When someone says to you, you can, through your devoted intention, bring to life anything that you choose to. They then speak from the vision of the mental process of seeing the world through that realm of boundlessness. And it becomes a day-to-day, conversation after conversation, memory after memory decision to decide which way you are viewing your world. That is the highest task, the highest calling that you and I have been given in this human form. And so we must then begin to decide that. And if you're like me, I'm often curious as to where did I get these old ideas that told me that certain things weren't possible? Where did I pick up these knee-jerk reactions to information and sound bites and circumstances that continue to dominate our human experience? Where did those things come from? And they will tell you that we will act in three ways. One way is fright. And so I want you to take your hands and put your hands over your eyes like this. This is fright. And when you are in fright mode, what do you see before you? Someone this morning said, "My lovely hands." And so this is fright. Now I want you to take your hands and turn them into fists, but leave them in front of your eyes. This is fight mode. And so you see the world through the lens of fight mode. And now I want you to take them and open your fingers and put them over your face like this. This is fright mode. Did you ever watch a horror movie when you were a little child? But you couldn't take your eyes away from it. But you were trying to distance yourself somehow between these little appendages. And so, when you remove everything, you see the world through what we call transcendence. So every day, we are at choice of whether I am seeing things through fright, through fight, through freezing, or through transcendence. And the decision becomes ours. And sometimes we're bouncing back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. You will come across people that you will know who see the entire world through this. You will see people who live their entire life through this. You will see people who live their entire life through this. And then we teach generation after generation after generation which way in which we see the world. And what you and I are called to do is to see the world through transcendence. Only then do we begin to understand the disillusion of the mask or the veil. Now, this is not new information. Every single prophet and sage since the dawn of time has taught this. The master teacher Jesus in the Bible said, "It is done unto you as you believe." The thing that is being done to us is the reflection of the world in correspondence to the belief through the mental process. Every great civic leader, everyone who has devoted themselves to nonviolence, whether it was on the bridge in Selma, whether it was Gandhi freeing his people in India, all of that was done through the mental vision of infinite potentiality. If I were to make every single decision through the lens of my physical sight, I would be a bitter, defeated old man. Our highest calling is to begin to see how to put this then into practical application. This week in our newsletter, if you get our newsletter from the center, If you read the minister's message, how many of you actually read the minister's message? Those of you are going to heaven. The rest of you. I just took a screenshot of everybody whose hand was not up. But in that minister's message, Nathan was kind enough to post a link to something that was riveting to me that I heard on NPR radio. And they did actually a dramatization of this story that just happened recently in Washington, D.C. There was a bunch of people, friends, maybe 10, 12 of them, that had gathered at one of their brownstone houses, and they were drinking wine and having cheese and dinner, and they were celebrating one person's accomplishment in getting a raise. One other person had achieved something else, and so it was just a very celebratory gathering. And it had been going on for several hours. Some people had drifted off. But as the husband and the wife who were hosting the party were standing there looking at the other people, all of a sudden a hand with a gun came right between their faces. And a man standing behind them began to yell all of these explicatives, telling them to give him all of the money that they had. Now here's the thing about today. Nobody carries money. We're plastic people, right? No one had cash, which made him even more irate. And they were going through everything. And he kept yelling, "Give me all of your money." So I want you to imagine all of the varying types. Some of them were doing this. Some of them were thinking this. Some of them were watching this. One woman sitting at the table did this. And she said, "Would you like a glass of wine?" She said, "It's French wine and it's really good." What was so remarkable about that moment was they said physiologically his face changed instantly. Instantly. It went from a deranged madman to someone who felt seen and heard. There was this dramatic, instantaneous calming that went through his body. And when she said, "It's French wine, it's really good," he said, "Yes." He sat down. She said, "Would you like some cheese?" He said, "Yes." She began to serve him. And the rest of them sat down beside him, and they all started to talk like nothing had happened. And he continued to drink his wine and to eat his cheese. And he muttered amongst them, "I think I picked the wrong house." They all just kept drinking and eating cheese. And when he had had his fill, he stood up and he said, "This was really good. Thank you. Can I have a hug?" So the husband and the wife went, and he said, "No, can I have a group hug?" And they all got around him going, "What the heck is going on?" And they hugged him, and he said, "Can I take my glass with me?" And they said, "Yes, here, take the bottle." And he left. And they all stood there. The point of that particular profile on NPR was the fact that that was a prime example of what is called non-complementary behavior. Non-complementary behavior is different than complementary behavior, so don't get these words confused with your understanding of the word complementary. Complementary simply means that if you say something nice to me, I say something nice back to you. If you insult me, I'm going to insult you. That's complementary behavior. Non-complementary behavior is regardless of whatever is slung at you or said to you, that you stop it in your tracks and you reflect back nothing but kindness and warmth. So it's not tit for tat. It's not an eye for an eye, which leaves the whole world blind. It's understanding that regardless of what the world is presenting to us through the lens of the physical eye, we have the opportunity to do what? To see through the mind of that which knows only love and warmth. Yes, I get easier said than done. Who knows what any of us in this room would have done in that situation? But if we are to be serious and be in integrity with our soul's assignment, then it is to practice and be readied and positioned to know that level of non-complementary behavior, which simply says, regardless of what the world throws back at me, I know and see only that which is God. Even in the apparent absence of, there is God. What happens to a person when that becomes the mainstay? What happens to you when that becomes the mainstay of your mental process, your consciousness, your awareness about the planet that you live on? What happens to you? I'll tell you, your entire world does a 180. Because suddenly, all of the story about why you can't is dissolved. Because what you and I are proving is this spiritual principle that reminds us that what we think, as a man thinketh, so he becomes. He becomes in that world, and the world becomes him. It's a match with regards to what it is that I am able to give, and it can only give me that. And so I must cease then to look beyond the physical barrier, the physical illusion, and to know that what is reflected back to me is what I'm giving it. Period. And we want to make an exception to that all of the time. And that's what becomes so sad. So every single moment is to examine, am I in fright? Am I in fight? Am I frozen? Or am I willing to transcend? Our founder, Ernest Holmes, said that the barriers between you and your greater good, and let me pause there and remind you that the world's gift to you, period, is this thing called good. Good, by definition, is everything wide open that is indicative of the virtues and the aspects of what we call God. That is the gift, the holy sacred gift to each sentient being is good. So the barriers between you and I and our good are not barriers in themselves. They're not physical barriers. They are things of thought. It is because of this that all things are possible through this thing called faith. What is faith? Sometimes we've discarded that word because we're so sick of hearing it, when it's the very science behind our soul's purpose. The science behind it. It becomes empirical every single time. By using that faith, we choose something that we can't see with the physical eye. Jesus, the master teacher, summed up the whole proposition when he said, "It is done unto you." Unto you. And this is the great word, as you believe. It is the thing of standing in the mirror, and the moment that the reflection gives back to you what you emanate is instantaneous. The thing then that stands between you and our greater good is a thing of thought and nothing else. It is not reality with a capital R that you and I must change, but it is our mental reaction to it. For well over a month now, we've we've grieved together. We've celebrated together. We've cried together over the world of events. And all of those things are indicative of the human heart. Those things are necessary. Those things are healing. Those things are vital for every single person to know that they do not walk in this world of effect alone. But you also realize that that's not the end of the destination. It's also not the end of what it is that we create and know and study as a philosophy. And so it's my job to remind you that we have to move beyond the human experience and return again and again and again and again to the soul experience that tells us, prepares us, beckons us to continue to transcend those things. Can you imagine if every single person in this room became a being of transcension consciousness? What would happen in Atlanta? And then what would happen in the state? And then the ripple effect, because all of you are so heavily involved in the world. Don't you see then where two or more are gathered together? Where two or more with ascension consciousness bring that consciousness to the forefront. Therein is that which is the love, the law, the Lord. All of those words which are indicative of as within, so without. As above, so below. As I become that, as I make it my mantle of responsibility, I then join the collective, all of those amazing individuals who continue to take down the veil of illusion of Maya and stand in the truth, knowing that everything that exists is capital R reality from the lens of my mental seeing. That's our soul's assignment. That's our highest calling. And so it is.
Hi, I'm David Ault, and I simply want to say thanks. Thanks for taking the time to watch our broadcast here at Spiritual Living Center of Atlanta. We have a vision, and that vision is to reawaken all to their spiritual magnificence. And one of the ways that we are able to do that is through this very medium of broadcasting. So if you got anything out of this, if you felt in any way inspired, or if something spoke to you directly, then I extend an invitation to you to become a part of our family by donating. And there are many ways in order for you to be able to do that. One is to simply go to our website at slca.com, and there you will find all different kinds of prompts that will help you support what it is that we are doing here in Atlanta. One way is to become a pledger. That means that you decide on a monthly basis that you are going to help us with this vision. Another way is to donate through our management system called Fellowship One, another through PayPal, and another even easier way is on your cell phone. You can do what's called text to tithe, and that number is 404-796-7030. Again, thank you so much for your support, and I invite you to come back weekly to see what it is that we're up to. Blessings.